with Week 11 wrapped up, let's take a look at some of the big games and matchups coming from this week. We start with Thursday Night Football, which saw a matchup between the Buccaneers and the Panthers. 16-10, Carolina upsetting the Buccaneers at home. The Buccaneers now losing to Atlanta and now Carolina. It's been a rough stretch of the season. Brady threw 2 interceptions. P.J. Walker didn't look great, didn't even throw for 100 yards, but it was the rushing offense for the Panthers that did really well, and Ian Thomas had most of the receptions on the night. Didn't need to throw, and they still beat the Buccaneers. It was thanks to those turnovers. So Tampa Bay 5-5, Panthers now at 3-7. Another rivalry, the Jets beat the Dolphins 30-21 in a good matchup. The Dolphins, a loss that they could not have. They were doing really good in division play, and then the Jets beat them. Mike White, 25 for 34, 282, 3 TDs on the day. Garrett Wilson with 2 of them and hit the best game in his career. Hill and Waddle did really well. Tua threw for 3 TDs on the day. Hill had 1 and Waddle had 1. The graphic is incorrect on that. And how about this? A duel in Dallas. The Cowboys dethrone the Eagles, who are no longer undefeated. Came down to the wire. It was a game winner by Zerline for the win. Devontae Smith had 3 TDs for the Eagles. Jalen Hurts threw for 5 touchdowns. Dak Prescott did good as well. He threw for 4 TDs, had an interception. Ferguson, 2 touchdowns for the Cowboys. Tony Pollard had a rushing touchdown for the Cowboys and 102 rushing yards. The Jaguars beat the Seahawks 27-20, a good game down there in Duval's. They're on a 2-game winning streak, beating the Chiefs. Now the Seahawks, and now Jacksonville will take on the Vikings next week. Trevor Lawrence, another strong game. Geno Smith played really good as well, nearly 300 yards. The Seahawks had a good day receiving when it comes to Lockett and Disley. Kenneth Walker had the only 2 touchdowns of the day for the Seahawks, despite the amount of passing yards they had. The Saints, they beat the Giants 19-17, and with 35 seconds, Andy Dalton set up a huge completion to Michael Thomas to set up the game-winning field goal, as the only touchdown for the Saints came with Alvin Kamara. The rest were field goals. Sterling Shepard had a good day through the air. Daniel Jones threw for 251, 2 TDs. This is a rough one for the Giants. They're 5-5. Saints 4-7, and don't count them out of a playoff spot just yet. The Texans, they beat the Browns 20-7 in a big upset. They get their second win on the season, so that's good for them. Jacoby Brissett had a terrible game. Deshaun Watson will be back in 2 weeks. Davis Mills didn't do any better, though, as this was just a game of whose offense was less mediocre, and it was the Browns in this case. Texans now 2-8. Browns fall to 4-6 and are starting to slip back in the standings for the AFC. The Chiefs trying to rally off their loss to Jacksonville, and that's exactly what they did, 27-3, as the Patriots have fallen off a cliff after their playoff appearance a year ago. Mac Jones did terrible. Bailey Zappi came in and did the best he could. He had a fumble, which was taken away. The Chiefs, on the other hand, didn't really need to do too much. They kind of did a little bit of both, kind of threw, kind of ran, mixed it up a little bit, and it worked. Mahomes 2 TDs. Pacheco had a TD in this game as well. As how about this? This was supposed to be one of the best games of the weekend. It was 23-3. Cincinnati did not give Baltimore a chance. They're on a 2-game losing streak, losing to the Colts and now the Bengals. And the Bengals, for the first time ever, sweep Baltimore. Jackson threw for 3 interceptions and had the fewest passing yards in a game in his career. Meanwhile, Joe Burrow, 316, most against the Bengals, had a TD and a pick. And then all 3 receivers, Chase, Boyd, and Higgins, did really well. America's Game of the Week on Fox, 27-13. The Bills beat the Packers at Orchard Park as Green Bay is starting to suffer their season as well. They dropped to 5-5. That's another loss for them. Josh Allen did really good through the air. Tre'Davious White had a pick 6. Aaron Rodgers continuing to struggle, and the Packers have got to find their rhythm. Their next opponents, Miami and Detroit. Both those teams are on fire. Of course, the Dolphins lost this week, but still they have a high-powered offense. And then the other team, the Lions, they lost to the Chargers this week, 35-28, this game at Ford Field. And the Lions, it came down to the wire. Jared Goff trying to lead a game-winning drive through a pick, and that was the difference. Justin Herbert, 281, did really good. Austin Eckler, 15 rush, 61 yards and a TD. Mike Williams had 3 TDs, just like Devontae Smith, just with less yards through the air. Amon-Ra St. Brown, good game for the Lions. The Falcons beat the Colts 24-13, a good win for them after the Colts just lost to beat Baltimore the week prior. Sam Ehlinger didn't do very good at all, as wondering when Matt Ryan will come back in. Marcus Mariota did pretty good, and the Falcons don't look now, but they are 5-6 and contending for the NFC South. So the Buccaneers better be careful. Who knows? The Falcons could sneak up there and grab the division lead. The Commanders, they beat the Broncos 31-18 as they are able to move forward in their season and get another win to progress to 3-7. The Broncos fall to 3-7. Heineke threw for 3 TDs. Russell Wilson threw for a lot of attempts, but little completions, 21 for 45. And it was just rough for the Broncos, and that's been their season with Russell Wilson. Not too much success, unfortunately. Sunday Night Football took a stop at SoFi Stadium where the Rams beat the 49ers 23-17. More of an interesting game in this one. Trey Lance, 5 for 14, 42 yards, 2 interceptions. So the seventh rounder, third string quarterback, last pick of the draft, Brock Purdy came in and nearly led the 49ers to a comeback. There was a scoop and score, then Purdy led them downfield to tie the game, but it was the Rams and Matthew Stafford who got the job done. This game in Mexico City, the Bears beat the Raiders 24-17. Justin Fields came back, and he did pretty good. Had 2 rushing TDs, 83 yards on the ground. The Bears had over 200 yards rushing on the Raiders, and it was tough for Las Vegas. They fall to 4-7. Bears, they also get their second win on the season. They improve to 2-9. Both these teams will have their bye week, week 14. These 4 teams, however, they had their bye week this week. Steelers, Cardinals, Titans, and Vikings all on a bye this week, so they had some stress-free football for themselves. Here are the AFC standings. You have Buffalo and Kansas City, 8-2, sitting high at the top. Cincinnati now takes control of the AFC North. Titans on a bye, staying 4th, with the Ravens, Dolphins, and Chargers rounding out the playoffs. But the Jags, Jets, and pretty much everyone back to about 14th or even 15th still have a chance to make the playoffs for the AFC, which is pretty insane. And the NFC, a little bit different. Eagles 9-1, Vikings, Seahawks, and Bucks, the division leaders. Cowboys, 49ers, Giants. And for the NFC, I would say all the way back to about 13th still has a legitimate chance to make the playoffs, even 14th or 15th as well. So no one's really out of the hunt just yet for all conferences. This is ASC. Hope you enjoyed this recap. Signing off.